Well, is the legislation working? It's hard to say. It depends how you define working. One of the problems with the Dodd Frank Act, or challenges that we're seeing with it, is it's not dealing directly with the actual problem. To me, to say that the act is working or the legislation is working, it needs to be measured by, is the conditions on the ground, are the people of the Congo better off now than it was before it started? One of the other challenges that we see with this legislation is it deals with one aspect of the problem. It doesn't deal with the root cause. So what we're trying to do is look at just where are the minerals coming from. The problem being is it working? So another challenge in complying with the conflict minerals legislation is the difference between the larger and the small companies. The larger companies have a lot more resources available and leverage within their supply chain to get the answers that they need. For smaller companies, this can be much, much more difficult. These smaller companies, they just don't have the number of employees or resources available to spend the time going through the supply chain, collecting up the documentation, and really going in and auditing to make sure it's true. So what are the challenges to the electronics industry of this legislation? Well, we make very complex products, and the products that we're building have multiple levels within the supply chain. And in some cases, it's very difficult for us as a manufacturer to go back all these different steps back to where the mineral is actually mined or smelted. One of the other challenges when we compare this to things like lead-free is we're trying to understand, where does the mineral come from? When we look at RoHS or lead-free applications, it was very easy to take a product, test it, and say, oh yeah, it does have lead in it. But for us to take a product and say, oh yeah, it has tin in it, where was the tin mined? It can't be done. The smelters are sort of the key in the supply chain. The mines are taking all the ore and taking them up to the smelter, and then the people in the industry are buying the ore from the smelter. So if we can identify at the smelter level, these are conflict-free, or these are areas where potentially there is being mineral from conflict regions being mixed in, that's the key. And as we're going down this journey as an industry, I think we're learning things, and the government is learning things as well. Is the law perfect? No, we all know it's not, but we're all learning from it. So the government is helping us with clarifications, they are helping us to set standards, and really putting mechanisms in place to help industries comply with it. This legislation doesn't just affect the electronics industries. There are a lot of other industries that are affected as well. If you think about it, jewelry, a lot of gold is being used there. Automotive manufacturing, tungsten is used a lot in drilling and in different sort of manufacturing applications. So are the expectations of the legislation clear? The expectations are clear, but the means of how we get there are not clear. It's really being left up to the industry to decide on their own. How are we going to gather this information? How are we going to collect this information? And then how are we going to report it in a manner that the public can make an informed decision?